I've had my share.
Good morning and welcome to Making Sense of It. I'm Mona Duncan, your moderator, and this program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. Each week we have a staff member to come on and present some concept of Dr. Glasser's and how it is applicable in their life to make life run more smoothly and just more smoothly. And our speaker today is Kim Olver. I'm sure all of you know Kim. She's been the executive director for many years of the whole worldwide situation, and now she is still with the international. And Kim is going to be sharing with us today on Christmas or the holidays and COVID-19 and how that we can still be joyful in some difficult situations. So welcome to everyone that is here. What we do is we have our speaker to speak for a while and we listen, and then we stop the program, the taping of it, and then those of you that are live can ask questions or make comments. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much for having me, Mona.
And I'm ready for you to take it away. Thank you for being here and doing this.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk about COVID and the holidays today because it seems to be on many people's mind. It's hard to live our lives these days without hearing about COVID and all of the cautions that are being talked about by the media and politicians about staying home and not having family gatherings. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that because I know people are of different minds. And the thing that I love about choice theory is it explains all of those different mindsets. So it doesn't make one right and one wrong. They're just different. So our world, if you look at this picture, it's kind of how I feel about it. Our world's turned upside down, and it's like we're walking on a tightrope, and we don't really know where to step, and we surely don't want to look down because it's scary. So there are some information that I got from COVID statistics to share with you. I got it just last night, so it's as current as I think you're going to find, unless you look this morning. There were 203,485 new cases reported yesterday. There were 1,533 deaths yesterday. In total, and this is in the US, by the way, this is not worldwide, I'm only talking about the US, 15.4 million cases since the beginning of this, 286.3 thousand deaths since the start. And then we are on track to hit 300,000 deaths by Christmas. Now, I don't know about you, but that is not news that I like to hear. It's really, it can be very sad and demoralizing. So I want to talk about how we can move on and up from there, because I don't know how it gets much worse. So we can only go up. So I want to talk about choice theory, and I want to talk about how it teaches us about how to manage this time. So we know, if we're choice theory people, we already know that we have genetic instructions to meet our basic needs. Our psychology and biology is pushed to get these needs met. If we don't have responsible ways to meet them, we are going to find less responsible ways, because we can't sit as human beings and not meet our needs for a prolonged period of time. So during COVID, for many, our need for survival is taking precedence. That's a strong need. People, especially older folks or people with compromised immunity or pre-existing conditions, they surely are thinking about their safety and survival. But we have 4 other needs that we're trying to meet. We're trying to meet love and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. And many of those needs have been restricted by COVID. So being restricted over the holidays might keep us and our loved ones safe, but it's likely going to frustrate our other needs. And if we're going to do that, if we're going to opt for the safety route, we're going to need to find other ways to meet those needs. So what are you going to choose? Are you going to stay in your bubble, or are you going to travel and congregate anyway? It probably depends on what needs you're controlling for in yourself, in your own system, and how risk averse your loved ones are. So, for example, if you have a grandmother who's in her 90s and in a nursing home, first of all, the nursing home probably won't let you come and visit. But if she's still in her own home, you're probably not going to go visit, because hopefully your grandmother might be concerned about possible infection. But if you have a grandmother who says, I'm 95 years old and I don't know when I could die, I want to see my family, then you may want to go and visit. It's a decision, it's a personal decision that you're going to need to make. So Glasser taught us two words to talk about our choices. He talked about effective choices and responsible choices, and they're not always the same thing. So in order to have an effective choice, it just means it meets your needs. So if I have a need for freedom, and that means I'm going to take my mask off and I'm going to go dance in the street, then that's effective. It'll meet my need for freedom, and I'll feel good. Sometimes that's not enough, though. Sometimes we want to work towards responsible ways to get our needs met. And Glasser talked about how that means you get your needs met, but you don't interfere with other people meeting theirs. So the way that I think about it, so I'm just giving my perspective. I'm not saying it's the only perspective or the right perspective, because I'll talk about that in a minute, how we have different perspectives on this. But I am concerned that if I travel and spread this virus because maybe I'm a carrier, maybe I've been exposed and don't know about it, that could cause someone else to get sick. And I personally could not live with myself if I knew that I infected someone and they got deathly sick. I just would not be able to handle that. That's a consequence I'm not willing to pay. My goal is to choose effective and responsible. Now, there's other people I know, and I have them in my life, who don't believe what the media is saying about COVID and the deaths. They think numbers are inflated. They think it's really not a big deal, and that even the deaths are being inflated. And they think that it's just like any other virus. We need to catch it. We need to develop immunity, and that's going to be fine. So I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying I believe something different. And it's really unfortunate that in this day and age, we have different facts that we get to decide if we're going to listen to. That's one of my frustrations. So a lot has to do with our perceptions. So I wanted to pick apart our perceptions and look at what that actually means. One factor is where we're putting our focus and our attention, right? I know that I don't turn on my television and listen to network news, but I do seek out information on the internet. I look at certain people that I have come to believe and trust over the years. Are they telling the truth? I don't know. That's the hard part. I really don't know. But that's what I do. I know some people who have totally stopped watching the news because they feel like it's just depressing and they don't want to hear about it. So their focus and attention, they have no idea what's happening right now. And when they don't know, they're not bothered by it. So there may be something to be said for kind of being the ostrich and sticking your head in the sand. I know that when my son was in Iraq, I chose that option. I turned off news because I didn't want to see the scrolling CNN headlines, and I got through that deployment pretty well because I wasn't constantly bombarded with information about where there were battles and how many deaths, and I just didn't want to know. So you have that choice where you place your focus and attention. I also know, because I have a lot of friends in my life who belong to the other camp, who believe differently about the virus than I do, they're always sending me information that supports what they believe. And I look and I read it and I listen to it so that I feel informed and know both sides. where you get your information and what information you get is another thing that affects our perception. If you know choice theory and you know the choice theory chart, I don't want to assume that everyone listening to this will, but you know that we have that knowledge filter, that total knowledge filter, and that knowledge filter contains all the information we've been exposed to and the experiences that we've had. So I know, for example, I have two sons who live in rural Pennsylvania, and they don't know a single person who's been infected with COVID, not one. Now, I live in Chicago, and I've had friends who are hospitalized and one on a ventilator. I have friends whose family members have died. I didn't actually know them myself, but I know my friends and their father died or their aunt died. So we have different information. So it causes us to think differently about this particular situation. And then we have our values, and our values will determine how we think about this. One of the values that's been front and center politically is safety more important than our livelihoods? Because some people might be staying safe in their home and they have no money to feed their children. And that's a problem. Some people are losing their homes. So depending on, probably everyone values being able to make a livelihood or have an income, and they value safety. But in this situation, if you can't have both, which one do you choose? So each of us are going to choose differently based on our values. So one thing I know that people are doing during this coronavirus time that I want them to take control of is worrying, because worrying is a very non-productive behavior. It does not help a thing to worry. If you can do something about it, then why worry? Do what you can. That's the critical point of choice theory. You want to focus your time, attention, and energy on the things that you have control over. So if there's something you can do about it, do it. In the beginning of this virus time, when they were talking about surfaces and all of that scary stuff, I was living with my mother at the time, who was 80 years old, and I would go get what is it called? Those wipes, the sanitation wipes, but that's not the right word. To wipe everything. We'd go grocery shopping and I'd wipe everything off before I put it away. I'd put some of the groceries that wouldn't go bad in the sunlight, because she lives in Florida. So we got to have the sunlight beat on them and kill coronavirus. And we were doing all kinds of stuff. Whatever they said to do. I took my shoes off before I came in the house, and I would even take my clothes off down to my skivvies on her lanai and put a robe on and walk in the house, leave my clothes that were affected by the outside the house. They say that's not such a big issue anymore. It's more contracted between air. So I'm not as worried about that as I used to be. But what I know I can do, I'm going to do. So I'm not going to worry. And then there's the part that you can't do anything about. And if you can't do anything about it, why worry about it? You have no power and control. Worrying isn't going to help. So stopping worrying, I think, is one of the best things you can do. And if you've ever listened to me talk about reality therapy, I always say stop doing plans never work. So I'm telling you to stop worrying, but what do you do when worrisome thoughts come into your mind? You have to have a plan ahead of time for what you're going to think instead. So you might think about whatever helps you feel better. For me, it's traveling. So I'm going to think about what my first trip will be when restrictions are lifted and people can travel again. Where will I go? What will I do? Who will I do it with? So when worrisome thoughts come into my mind, I go to the future and think about the satisfaction I'll have when I can travel again. You'll have things that will help you feel better, things that you've missed from your life that you can start thinking about those and planning them ahead of time. I also know that worrying compromises your immune system right at a time when we're trying to strengthen our immune system. So we have to get that worry under control. We also want to focus on what we can do not on what we can't. So we can still work. We may not be able to go into the office. So focus on what you can do, not on what you can't. You may not be able to go visit relatives or see them this holiday season, but you can have a Zoom conversation with them and almost feel like you're in the same room. Focus on what you have with gratitude, not on what you don't with frustration. Gratitude will always lift you up. Frustration will do nothing but put you in a poor frame of mind that's not going to help you or serve you as you think about how to handle this situation. And then find the glow. I talk about the glow all the time. Whenever you think about bad things that have happened to you, and bad meaning painful experiences, and for many, this COVID situation has been painful. So however much emphasis you put on the pain, if you could give it a number from 1 to 100, I would propose that there's equal positivity in that same situation. It's like the periodic table of elements. Every element in our naturally occurring world has equal protons and electrons. It has the same positive charge as it does negative charge. And I think that coronavirus is the same. It has been painful for many people, but the glow stands for gifts, lessons, opportunities, and wisdom that are coming from this. What are they for you? And then what to do. So we need to learn to meet our needs in new ways, given our current situation. And when we feel out of sorts, we want to tune in, do some self-reflection, self-evaluation, and kind of figure out which needs are the most frustrated and address those needs first. And remember, I can't say this often enough, focus on what you can control, not on what you can't. So then when you think about what the holidays consist of for a lot of people, this is what I hear people saying that they're missing. Religious observances. Churches aren't having their in-person services. They're not going to be able to see loved ones. They won't be able to have the large gatherings they've had in the past. They might miss Aunt Betty's special dish that she brings to this gathering. So food might be something missed. Gifts. I don't hear a lot of people talking about the missed gifts, but there might be missed gifts and people might be thinking about that, especially the children, right? So are there ways to have these things in the midst of a lockdown? And I say, yes, there are. So let's look at that. Survival, safety, and security is one of the needs. So some of the things you can do with that are create a physical fitness routine, make and adhere to boundaries you set, use time to improve your financial situation, plan for challenging times, develop a regular sleep regime, eat healthy meals, manage your priorities well, get organized. Now, love and belonging, this is part of what you may not do at Christmas. You may feel like you can't meet this need. But Zoom can be your friend for people outside your household. You can play games on Zoom or attend your online services. You can have your dinner meal, even if you're alone, have your relatives call into a Zoom and you can all have your computer on your table with you and it'll feel maybe not the same, but almost the same. So I'm not going to waste time reading this to you. I'm just going to click through these because I know we're getting close to the end of our time. So you can read these for yourself. But some of these are, we can send gifts through UPS, Amazon. We can even have food delivered to shut-ins, right? We can get some Boston Market and send it to people. They can have a turkey dinner at their doorstep delivered. So there's things that we can do. We can write letters, send Christmas cards this year, things that maybe you don't have time to do other years. For the power need, you can organize a challenge. These are all things that you can do to help yourself feel better. One big thing I've seen a lot of people do is complete projects you've been putting off, right? I see people cleaning out drawers they haven't thought of in 20 years, going through their clothes in their closet. The Goodwill's getting lots of donations. So those are things that you can do. It gives you such a sense of accomplishment when you've done it. Freedom is one of my highest needs, and it has felt probably the most frustrated during coronavirus, I'm not going to lie. But these are some things that we can do. People who have a high freedom need want to do what they want, but we need to balance it with responsibility for others. And sometimes know that you give up the freedom you want right now for a bigger payout later. But still, you need to get freedom now. You can't just give it up and wait a year to have it back again. You've got to figure out some other ways you might need it. So focus on the choices you do have, not the ones you don't. And maintain and further develop your independence. And here's a big one. You can use this time to eliminate toxic people and tasks from your life, because we all have those. And if we could get rid of those things, we'd feel a lot of freedom. And then fun. These are just some things. Maintain your sense of humor. Pursue a hobby. You can always watch the sunrise and set, unless you're where Linda is and there's no sunshine right now, but then you could watch the snowfall. Get out in nature. Do a puzzle. Play a game. Learn something new. Do some meditation and yoga, and you can attend your religious observances online or practice them personally in your home. God is everywhere. It's not something that you have to be in communion in person with other people to do. So ultimately, the decision is yours. At the end of the day, you need to be able to lay your head down and be at peace with your answer to the question, was I the kind of person I wanted to be today? And will I be able to live with the potential consequences of my actions? That's what I had to talk about today as it relates to COVID and the holidays. Thanks so much, Mona, for having me.
Well, thank you, Kim. Wonderful, wonderful. You always provide us with a wealth of information, and it's very palpable. So I have a couple of questions for you. When you were talking about our becoming frustrated, and then you said, what is it, whatever that we need for our controlling? Can you explain that?
Oh, geez, now that you say it back to me, I'm not even sure what I was talking about. But when you have a need, you feel that frustration of not having the need. It's the frustration that comes from putting what you want and what you have on the scale, and it doesn't match. So then you feel a frustration. Oh, I remember I talked about the needs you're controlling for. Mm-hmm. So when you have a quality world picture on those scales, you're taking the quality world picture that's most salient to you at that moment. We don't put our whole quality world on the scale. It's what is it that you want right now? So whatever you want, if you had that, what need would be met? Because a lot of times we want something that we can't have right now if we're trying to be responsible. So if you had it, you need to ask, well, if I could do that, if I could go visit my mother right now in Florida, what need would that meet for me? And while for some of you might think that would be love and belonging, for me, it would be a power need, because I'm being the daughter that I want to be. I'm being the best daughter I could be. So that would meet my need for power. So now I'm controlling for that. I don't think it's responsible for me to do that. So my question would be, how can I get more power in my life right now? And then I would look at something else.
So once you can identify what is that frustration signal, then you're in position to make an adjustment.
Absolutely.
Make an adjustment.
Yeah. The thing I want to mention I didn't say is sometimes if I need power and I try to fill it with more love and belonging, that's not going to work.
That satiates.
Right. We've
got to settle.
We got to match what we're missing with what we're trying to gain. I think that's an important point that I know I've made the mistake of trying to fill it with something else, and it doesn't work.
Right. I really appreciated the way that you melded being effective and responsible together so that they both really fit. And then also how that you explained what our perception is made of. Those different ingredients.
Right.
Made it very clear. So when you were talking about don't worry. Is it possible?
Don't worry, be happy.
That's right. Is it possible for people to confuse worrying with caring?
Well, I hope that they don't, but I do believe that that is one of the purposes of worrying, right? Glasser teaches us that all behavior is purposeful. So why would someone worry? And I think sometimes we worry to communicate how much we care about someone. I care about you so much, I'm worrying about you. And I don't, for myself, let me say for myself, I don't want that to be the way I communicate how I care. I want to communicate my caring in a different way. So what I want to do is communicate that I believe in your competence to handle this situation. And so I have no need to worry about that. And I care about you in the process. I love you, I care about you, and I want everything to be okay.
And then one of your ways to kind of handle that worry was the glow. So would you explain again the breakdown of GLOW?
Yeah, so I know that I've had some painful situations in my life, as everyone has, right? It's not just me. But I talk about the main things are my husband passing away at, 37 years old, having 2 teenage boys to raise virtually by myself, having that youngest child decide he wanted to go play in Iraq in, a combat zone. And then the time that I broke both my ankles in a hot air balloon accident. So those are the main painful events in my life. And it's so easy to focus on the pain because our brains are hardwired for negativity. And that's an evolutionary thing. When we were cave people, we had to notice when something was wrong. We had to notice when the birds stopped singing or the sun stopped shining or the river dried up. But these days, it's not that we're ever going to forget how to do that, but we also need to stop the focus on all the negativity. That's what mindfulness is about, and that's what gratitude practice is about. But I like to think specifically of the glow, and the glow stands for what are the gifts that I received from this situation? What are the lessons I've learned? What are the opportunities I now have? And one thing I would say about opportunities is you always have the opportunity to help someone else going through the same thing you've been through. And whether you take it or not, that's up to you. But you always have that opportunity. So I know after my husband died, one thing I really wanted to do and I've done is help people focusing on grief. And then W stands for wisdom. I didn't always have a W, but I've added that recently. And wisdom is different from lessons because you can learn a lesson, but it doesn't always change you. And I think wisdom is about how are you changed for the better from this situation. And I use that with my clients all the time. And I have yet to have someone not be able to find some elements of glow. It's a process to get to where you have equal amount of glow as you have pain. But when you get there, I think for me, that's the process of working through grief. And also it helps you no longer be hostage to the pain. So the pain doesn't go away. You still have experienced pain, but you now recognize that there were some benefits with it as well. And there was nothing, here's the thing, there was nothing you could do about that pain. You didn't choose it, you didn't ask for it, but it came. So, if you could change the pain, you would, but you can't. So you can work at finding the glow, and that will neutralize the experience for you, balance it out.
Very good, very good, very good. And so even in the midst of the isolation, if you choose to do that for responsibleness as well as then you're doing all those things in the midst of lockdown. And how does pets fit in there?
How does what fit in pets? Oh, pets. Do you know that the price of breeded dogs have like doubled and tripled this year because people are buying dogs, and it makes all the sense in the world to me because I always say dogs are a love and belonging animal. Cats are a freedom animal. If you need freedom in your life, get a cat. If you need love and belonging, get a dog. Some people have cats that actually act like dogs, so there are exceptions. But it makes so much sense to me that pets are really healthy for people right now, especially if you live alone. They give you something to care about. And you know, one thing, my friends and I were talking last night, we were on a Zoom call, and we are saying how much we miss hugging people. We're all huggers. And I don't, you know, I was in Pennsylvania for Thanksgiving. I have two kids who, and their wives and their children who are really unconcerned about coronavirus. They almost want to get it so that they can have immunity for it. So I drove there. I quarantined myself 2 weeks before I left, so I knew I wasn't sick. I brought food with me, so I didn't have to stop at a restaurant. And the only thing I did was pee once. I didn't drink anything, so I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom. And I filled up with gas once. So I felt I did it as safely as I possibly could. And I checked with them because I certainly didn't want to come and impose myself and have them be scared or worried, but they weren't. And so that was the last time I hugged somebody, which wasn't all that long ago. But before that, it had been quite some time. So I miss that.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, you know, the UCLA's tell you to hug yourself, but that really does it does have a, because we're taught we need to love ourselves. If we don't love ourselves, we can't love others.
That's
And
right.
it's kind of well, that seems silly to hug myself, but yet it's a way of taking an internal need and kind of fulfilling it.
Yeah.
And then when you talk there at the very end about asking yourself, the way I handle today, do I like that? Do I approve of that? Well, what if the person is, you know, going with the disconnecting habits? What do you have to suggest for them if they have a bad answer to that I like today?
Well, are you saying that they use bad habits and they say they're okay with that? Or is it that they use bad habits and they regret it?
Well, actually, I was thinking of the regret, but either way.
Okay. So let me start with the regret. So if they have things at the end of the day and they put their head down, they should, in my opinion, I don't like using the word should. Let me say, I would invite them to consider what they could do to make amends. And if there's nothing they can do to make amends, how would they handle that situation in the future? Because you can't go back. That's the thing about, you know, choice theory always teaches you history. It's already been written. You can't edit that. You don't get to change that, but you can turn the page and you can do something different in the future and give yourself a break. Because one of the things I know choice theory says is we all do the best we can in that moment. So even if you have regrets, you might have regrets because 3 hours later you thought of something that you weren't aware of in that moment. So now you're a different person. If you use destructive habits and you're happy with that, this is the hard part about being a choice theory person, because everybody gets to choose how they're going to live their life. And I could judge them, I could try to change them, but probably there's two ways that somebody practicing choice theory might handle that. If this is a person in their life, they could move closer to that person to try to build rapport and relationship with them. Or they may have already tried that and didn't have much success, so they decide that they need to have a boundary around that relationship and, you know, protect themselves from whatever abuse the other person may heap on them. So, and I guess there's also a third choice, because I'm always big on 3 choices. And the third choice would be strengthen themselves so that they can be in presence and in relationship with that person and not take it personally. So those are 3 options.
Okay, sounds good. And instead of saying should, use the word could, because that just takes the weight off. When I could have done that. You may be a little upset with yourself, but learn to forgive yourself so that I used to be that way, but now I'm changing my mind. Well, thank you so very much. And thank everyone that is here with us live today. And we're going to turn the recording off so that those of you that are present can ask questions or make comments and be with us again in future weeks. We'll always have someone here with good information to share. So in the meantime, have a great day and a great week and good mental health.